Dukes on Twitch here with another Legacy League tonight. Looking at playing pretty standard D&T. So we've made a few run changes. We have main deck the Ballista, and then we've also added in some sketchy enchantments in the form of Mark of Asylum and also Honor of the Pure. Two pretty dedicated cards to the Grixis matchup, which can be pretty rough. And Grixis has really shown its form over the past few weeks as a pretty top tier deck within Legacy. I'm still thinking about the mana base and what I want from it, especially with the Ghost Quarter and the Horizon Canopy, and if it's not better just to add another land, which it really might be. So we're gonna check that out, but yeah, it should be pretty good. The parts, Res and Pieces, Surgicals, and Council's Judgment's the only two obs in the sideboard. The rest really just being one obs that I want to hit with either Recruiter of the Guard or cards I just don't want in multiples. Gideon could be a two of, but we're gonna see how we go here. It could actually be strictly better just to play another Gideon over the Honor of the Pure, which I actually kind of think is probably better. So we're gonna go ahead and make that last minute change. But this looks pretty good. Nice. El Jeffo Kumbayo? I cannot say your name, but yeah, you were the last winner of one of the giveaways, and luckily in the US you have received my Knight of the Reliquary, so that's awesome. So yeah, let's just go ahead and play. I'm pretty keen to give this a good try. So yeah, let's just join up and see how this goes. So we're playing Legacy D&T. We will submit this, use event ticks, and of course we have our leaderboard, which is refreshed since the last update. So this should be pretty fun. Welcome as you guys come in. This should be a good round of Magic. It's been nice playing Maverick, U-White Stoneblade, and a few different decks, but coming back to D&T is always the sweet spot. It's where I really find myself. Foxforus, hello and welcome once again. Yeah, this should be good. I'm really keen for tonight. This should be good. Get some good times in chat. And yeah, to see how the deck goes. It should be. I'm quietly confident. I think that's probably the best way to put it. Whew. Yeah, looking at the undefeated trophies, only a few leagues out so far, which is fair enough. Especially with the reset of the trophies and the race to the top. So this is a pretty strong hand. It's 2-lander with an Aether Vial, and then a pretty good run up. So we do have a turn 2 Thalia or Stoneforge if we want. We're going to keep this. Most likely we will use the Aether Vial to get our creatures into play, to play around things like Daze or Force if it comes up. His name's Aurum, so this could be something like Storm. Interesting. This could also be Reanimator, which is looking to be what it is, and a Terminal Grizzlebrand is going to be pretty tough to beat. To be honest, I could have in response to the Unmask, yeah, sorry, in response to the Unmask, I could have just conceded, especially when they're drawing 7 and have a Grizzlebrand out. It's pretty good, but we do have Caracas, so we do have some pretty live draws. Drawing into a Swords to Plowshares would also be more than fine. And turn 1 Mom's not the worst. we're still going to play it out. If we were going to concede, it was going to be back at the last point of contact with that unmask. So yeah, let's just fight this out. It's going to be tough. They're most likely going to be going up to around 14 cards during their turn. So they will have a lot of options. But yeah, maybe even entombing here, which is going to be pretty good. I'm going to say Iona. It's going to be Asian Rider, which is fair enough. Luckily, it means that they won't be able to, say, hit a Caracas because I'll be drawing it off the top. But it's definitely looking downhill from here. I'm going to assume this this Ashen Rider is going to go after my planes, which it does, which is fair enough. Also, just a little side note that if you want to be looking at my deck list, you can see it on the side of the screen. I'm just going to quickly, awkwardly bring this up over. But if you hover over this, you can actually bring up the deck list from Cardboard Live, which is really sick. Yeah, something just reanimated things, which is fair enough. I mean, that's what you get for playing the deck. You either go off, turn 1 or 2, or it's going to draw long, and you're most likely not going to get there. But yeah, this is going to be tough, especially with the Rider. I'm going to have to kind of get some draws. It's really going to be Caracas into Swords. There's not really another way around it. I could also go Swords into Caracas, but I'd much rather get this Grillibrand off the board and have them stop drawing cards. So I believe that's just game. So with flying creatures, next turn they come in for 11. I only have one draw, and both of those will be lethal. So sadly, not the best start, but we'll see how it goes. Chronix X Man 15. Hey, that's awesome. Hopefully you learn a little bit. Legacy is one of, if not the funnest format. So yeah, welcome. Hope you have a great time. So what I'm looking at is, of course, Graveyard Hate. So cards like Surgicals, Fairy Macabre, and Rest in Peace. Prelate's a little bit rough. It is pretty slow. I do also like the Relic Quarter for cards like Animate Dead. They could also bring in other cards like Dread of Night. It can hit Lotus Petal if you're really going after their mana. Rainbow 39, good evening. Yeah, the card overlay thing is very cool. I'm really liking it. So what we don't like is pretty much the whole Stoneforge package. It's a little bit slow. It's a little bit too fair. It's just not really what we want to be doing here. So happy to take that out. The two parts are actually pretty good. Especially when you're trading with threats of 6+ mana. And I also believe that a lot of the reanimated decks post-board against ENT will go for an early Sire of Insanity. So having that ability to kill it before you go to that end step and discard your hand, then it's pretty optimal to try to have one of your 6 removal spells in your deck. So it could just be the Council's Judgments. They also may bring in, and I forget its name, it's a 6-drop Hog creature that gives hexproof to all creatures, and it also has hexproof. I'm going to say Archetype of Endurance, but it's just another removal spell that can be really good. The Blister as well is a little bit too slow. Perhaps the Mirren can come out as well. We could put in a Relic Quarter and take out a Wisp. The Wisps aren't that great either, so perhaps taking out 2 Wisps and bringing in that 4th Jailer could really seal the deal. So pretty happy with this. It's pretty different to the Game 1 deck list, but it's not too bad. So this is a 1-lander, but I'm pretty keen to keep it. There's no white source, which is annoying, and if they do have one of their Chancellors to show it, it's not the greatest, but at the same time it does turn on a lot of our next turn plays if we do draw a white source. So I'm pretty keen to keep this. I think it's really risky, but I think you got to risk it to get the biscuit. So we're going to keep. Hopefully not see. Yeah, turn 1 Vial keep. Especially with Thalia and Revoker, you do have a few different options of how you want to play it out. So no reveal, which is great. So we're going to play this Vial and pass. If they do unmask, they do have a few options to take, which is great for us because it's gonna take some time for them to really deal with all these threats. If we do say keep, get there with the second land. The Legacy Tuesday keep. Yeah, that is very much so. So luckily the pedal, but no creature in the graveyard. So worst case here, we get to tick up Vial to 1 and play the second Vial. And it's a Mirren. So not the best. Hopefully they haven't brought in Pithing Needle. For something like Caracas here, they could just name Aether Vial. Interesting, so going straight for the looting as well. So perhaps with another pedal in hand, trying to draw into a creature, but we don't see anything. Interesting. So we will use Aether Vial's ability to 2, and we will use this one to 1. We will draw a land, which is sweet. So what we get to do here is not only play Rest in Peace, but then also play Thalia. Of course, that gets the win, which is great. This does show me one thing. A few decks do try to sideboard into Helm of Obedience against Rest in Peace decks. So I think this shows that they just don't have Helm of Obedience, which is sweet. But of course, playing a deck like this that relies so much on the graveyard, Rest in Peace can pretty much just end the game just like that. Where my opponent obviously knows that it's probably not worth it trying to fight through it. And it's probably not worth giving away what you already got. Chronic Man 15, thank you very much for the follow. This hand's sweet. It's got the Caracas, which is great. It's got a turn 2 Plains. Also, if they're light on mana, we do have the Wasteland, so I'm pretty happy to keep this. Caracas being an unmaskable card, which is great. I just hope that if they do go for an early reanimate, that they do... They do go for it. So here, if they do intend to entomb in the end step, I am pretty keen not to show the Caracas. So I think I'm happy to play the Plains and pass. However, if I play the Plains and pass and they do get something like Sire, then I am going to be in a pretty bad spot. Or even something like Grave Titan. Sorry, Sire is the big one because it makes me discard the Caracas. I believe if I just play the Caracas, that's fine. Because even if they do get a non-legendary creature, I am still keeping them off what they can do. I think I just have to play the Caracas and see how we go. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm pretty happy with playing the Caracas. And then just passing. I feel like bagging it just isn't worth it for the upside of just being able to deal with their threat straight away. So there's the Grizzlebrand, which is interesting as I have Caracas out. So perhaps they have something like Pithing Needle, or they may even try to discard Ashen Rider and then get that back. But here's Animate dead, so they're going straight for it, which is interesting to say the least. So what I'm going to do here is actually return the Grizzlebrand in response to them drawing the first lot, so that if they want to draw more, they will have to use it again, which is fine by us. So next turn, just looking at what I have, I do have the option to name Lotus Petal with Revoker, Wasteland them, play Rest in Peace, or just keep up what I have. Thoughtseize is most likely... Oh, targeting themselves. So we get to see their hand, which is pretty great. Taking out the Asian Rider. So let's take a quick snip of this. Just keep that on the side. That's cool. There's the Exhume, which is pretty good. So they do have double Thoughtseize. So this is going to get pretty out of hand pretty fast. However, this Revoker as well is a turn 2 clock, which is pretty awesome. There's no real point wastelanding them here. They do have a Pithy Needle in hand as well. They have a Marsh Flats and a Swamp, so the wasteland's pretty much turned off. So here I'm actually pretty happy just playing the Plains and pass. If they do Thoughtseize us, it means that the Revoker is lethal with one swing, so it turns off the other Thoughtseize as well. So perhaps Thoughtseize actually isn't where they want to be, and they might have to try and get back this Grizzlebrand. There's the Thoughtseize. So going to 2, they might just have to take the Revoker. I believe they'll take the Judgment because it's an answer to the Rider. But they take the Rest in Peace. Okay, that's fair enough. Von Snickety, very cool to see you. Wow, they had an Animate Dead as well. Okay. Wow, and a Pedal? That's rough. That's really rough. So nothing we could really do there. Drawing the other Recruit is not the best. Of course, it's still in the deck because at instant speed it can hit Fairy Macabre. But with this clock, I think, and the Tide's Bout's effect, they're pretty much just going to Time Walk us and most likely take the win. So perhaps it wasn't the greatest hand to keep. It did have a lot of answers, which is great, but it just doesn't have what I really needed. Yes, this is gonna be game. Sadly, but yeah, not the greatest start, but pretty tough when they just especially reanimate it twice on the play. Can be pretty tough for a deck with so many 2-drop answers. It just didn't really pan out the way that we wanted. But only up from here, I say. Especially with Destined Axes being pretty strong right now. Definitely a contender for one of the top tier decks in Legacy, and actually pretty unlucky to see Reanimator so early, which is tough, but that's part of Legacy, and there's a whole amount of decks we're going to run into, which is great, and hopefully some pretty spicy ones, because it's always cool seeing them on camera. But yes, if any of you guys in chat play Reanimator, I'd love to hear what you think of the matchup between D&T and Reanimator. I think it's pretty favored for D&T. I think the play draw is a big dependence, but maybe that's just the way I go. Chronic X-Man, what format do you usually play, and what deck? It would have been tough. That's fair to say. Fair Macabre would have been sweet to take out the Tidespout Tyrant, and also a Grizzlebrand. And then also drawing into things like Sword Splashes or Path to Exile would have been great. Mainly because what I could have done is, if I drew a Path or Swords, I could have floated the mana with my white planes in response to them playing a spell through the Tidespout Tyrant. Return the planes to my hand, still had 1 mana, and then dealt with the Asian Rider. And with that, it means that they can't actually destroy anything because the planes is now in my hand, which is quite nice. I am still set back a fair amount, but I think that's probably one of the cards that at least would have got me a bit more of a chance. Naya Burn, sweet. What are your thoughts on Wild Cattle in Burn? Is it is 3 damage for 1 good enough in a creature, or do you think you should be more on the sort of Goblin Guide, Swift Spear, Eidolon, and then just burn spells straight up? Yeah, I really needed removal there, especially with the Tidespout Tyrant in play. Any creatures I play, they most likely could have just dealt with by bouncing it, which is pretty rough. Tidespout Tyrant is a hell of a card. I actually remember in one of my first games with Death and Taxes playing against Reanimator, or Reanimator for the local player here that plays it. I had a Mirren Crusader with a sort of Fire and Ice on it, and my opponent had out a Lotus Petal and a Tidespout Tyrant. And I actually thought that I could, of course, just swing straight through. But they sacked the Petal for Black and Entombed, and then bounced the Sword, and then blocked the Mirren, and it was a blowout. It was the worst. Yeah, no, Cattle is pretty badly positioned, especially when you have to wait that turn to deal the 3. I mean, having haste is, of course, a little bit too much for a 1 mana 3/3, technically 3/3. But yeah, with push, so many good creatures out these days. It's just too easy to sort of turn it off as a card that can sort of deal damage when you most rather just have a bit more burn in your hand. Oh, sweet, you're a local player. Cool. Trying to find opponents for Legacy is never this hard. I don't think I've ever waited more than 2 minutes. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, it's no guide or supposed to be for sure. Goblin Guide just being so good. I think it's definitely a kind of hallmark card of Modern, if you will. Hey, there we go. So we got our match, which is awesome. Hopefully on the play. We get the play, which is great. Not the greatest hand, but a 1-lander. This is definitely not a keep. Even having the Batterskull in hand just isn't the greatest. So we're going to mull this to a great hand. I don't think you can really get a better 6 from this. So we'll lead on the Mum. Leading on the Caracas might make us get Wastelanded pretty early. I'd rather keep that. So turn 1 Mum, turn 2 Port, turn 3 Thalia with Caracas up. So we're going to keep this. Yeah, pre-release would be sweet. Pretty keen to play tomorrow night. The second Port is pretty awesome because it allows us to go turn 1 Mum, turn 2 Port, turn 3 Thalia with Caracas up, and then turn 4 just double port them. Which is great, but I think by that time I would much rather have a little bit more oomph. So I'm going to put this on the bottom of my library and see how we go from here. So we're going to play a Plains and play Mother Runes. I believe I'll be playing Golgari at the pre-release. Wooded Foothills, interesting. Wooded Foothills could be Rug Delver. So what I'm keen to do here is perhaps just play the Port and pass. If they do want to fetch on the end step, it gives me a land to tap down. But in this case, it's a little bit interesting. If I give them a land, and then go to tap down their fetch land, they may say Brainstorm in response. But at the same time, if I'm tapping down now, at least I'm forcing it. So pretty much if I don't tap down, they're going to get to 2 mana anyways, but here at least I'm forcing them to do it. Their turn 2 play might have been land pass, and if that was for something like Brainstorm and then fetch end of turn, at least now I'm making them, I'm at least making them make that move. So this is looking more and more like Rug Delver. Rug's usually a pretty good matchup. Main deck True Name Nemesis can be a pretty big issue in the early game, but with this Thalia and Jit, oh, with a Caracas, interesting. So this I'm not too sure about. This could actually be Maverick, which it is looking to be. Yeah, the big giant arrow is a really weird, Trent. Not the biggest fan. Not the biggest fan. So this is a little bit more interesting. The Thalia is pretty much turned off now. So I'm pretty keen to play out this Jitte and also try to Swords the Noble. I could also Swords the Noble and then keep them off the Tropical Island. So I'm going to play out the Caracas. I'm definitely going to Swords the Mum. Sorry, Swords the Noble. And I think because I'm denying them mana, I should really push that with this port. And so what I'll do is just let them untap in the upkeep, tap them down, and then next turn, maybe even try it again with the Jit with the Mum. So we'll tap them off the dual land. I kind of want to tap them off white because an attacking Mum can get taken down by Swords to Plowshares. But I think that if I am trying to keep them off mana, I should keep them off green so they can't somehow get back in the game with their mana through something like another Noble Hierarch or Green Sun Zenith. Lord Hexed, that sucks. But at least you do have the following weekend where I believe a lot of stores do kind of like another pre-release, which is pretty cool. Which could be pretty good as well. You never know. Crop rotating. Interesting. Perhaps for a Wasteland? Perhaps for another dual land to get something like a Noble Hierarch on board? Just a Wasteland. Interesting. So it looks like they want to attack my mana. Which is fine because what I've now done is been able to turn back on my Thalia as they've sacked their Caracas, which is pretty huge. They're down to 4 cards as well, so it looks like they don't have another land. So here we're going to be able to untap with this Thalia. And with Caracas up, we do have a bit of protection as well, which is even better. But there's a Force of Will. Interesting. I'm trying to figure out what deck this is. Perhaps this is more of a Bant type deck. Which it really could be. I just don't really know what to expect right now. There's a Swords, which is great. So this allows us to play Stoneforge Mystic, get Batterskull, and then just pass turn. So looking pretty good right now. Yeah, it at first I thought it was Rug Delver, but then it started looking like Maverick with a blue splash for cards like Leovold. But with Force and Crop Rotation, I'm not too sure what it is. So we drew the Recruiter, which is a 3-drop, but I'm pretty keen just to pass with Batterskull up. So we can do that. This could be some sort of mid-range brew. There is Dried Arbor. So perhaps this could also be some sort of... natural order deck that goes to get Progenitus. Which I'm starting to think it might be some sort of banned natural order deck. Oh, it's Infect. Wow, okay. Wow. Haha. Did not expect that. We'll go to the end step to put in this Batterskull, which isn't going to do much. So I think I might actually put in this Jitte and start getting him with the Jitte first. Just because it is a little bit more relevant. So even though we drew the 4th land, I'm still very keen just to equip the Stoneforge. Hopefully they don't have Vine's Vastwood. I believe in response I could give Pro green anyway. And now we can just go to town with this Jit and hope it sticks. So now looking at crop rotation and Force of Will and Noble Hierarch, it makes a lot of sense that this is Infect. But I think it was just the way that the game played out in the early stages that really took me off it being Infect. It's quite interesting that they kept a hand without a real threat until they drew the Inkmoth. So, 2 cards in hand. I feel like I want to get rid of this and try to find something like a Wasteland. So I'm pretty happy here just to attack him with this Stoneforge. They could block with the Hierarch and pump it somehow, but I do have the Mother of Runes, which is great, and it's not doing anything against this Inkmoth anyway. So here I'm pretty happy just to play this Revoker naming Noble Hierarch, and then even just move the Jitte over to the Revoker. That way, if they want to attack him with the Hierarch, they will have to try to get past this Phyrexian Revoker. Or it could keep up double path to bluff Swords, which I think is probably better actually. Mainly because with this Jit with already 4 counters on it, it's not going to be doing too much. I don't believe they can beat the Jit, but you never really know. So we'll let them go to combat with the trigger on the stack first. I don't believe there's any reason not to. I might as well try and kill it first. They only have 2 cards in hand, and we have 3 Jit counters. So this isn't going to work out well for them, which is great for us. It looks like they might be trying to play Become Immense, which again we can just remove and hit the Nexus, which is pretty damaging for them because now they have no cards in hand, and with this last Jitte counter we can even just wipe their board. But I don't believe it's worth it, and I think it's worth just, yeah, which is fair enough. I think Jit's definitely the best card in the matchup. So now we get to go to the sideboard and have a little look at what we got. So we have some extra removal in Path to Exile, which is great. The Leonid Relic Order can hit things like Sylvan Library or Inkmoth Nexus, which is pretty good as well. So those 3 will definitely come in. I do like bringing in 1 Council's Judgment for things like Sylvan Library or even trying to hit like a Blighted Agent, because they can be pretty hard to hit once you're once they get a pretty good hand together and can kind of protect the infect creatures from targeted removal. So Council Judgment, of course, plays around that because it doesn't target, which is great. But in regards to what we take out, so we're bringing in 4 cards. That's pretty easy. Revoker isn't the greatest. We can name Noble Hierarch, that's about it, so we might keep 1 in. Batterskull is a pretty bad draw, so we'll take that out. But because Umezawa's Jide is just so good, we'll keep in all 4 Stoneforge. We might take out 1 Stoneforge. We might also take out 1 Recruiter, just because we don't have clear targets to get other than really these 3 creatures. I guess, and the Revoker, but I think the Prelates definitely come out. It's just too hard to name 1 number. We're actually down now, so it could really be just the other Jailer. They do only have so many creatures, and so a Jailer getting in could just be what we want, but I don't think it is. Farish, thank you very much. Prelate for 3 is pretty good. It stops Invigorate. Invigorate's the big one, I believe. It does stop Judgment, but maybe it's worth it. So maybe we will keep a Prelate in just to have it at least. Yeah, definitely. That's a very good point. The one thing that plays around that is Become Immense, which can be really annoying. But this is a great hand, so we're going to keep it. It allows us to play our turn 1 if we really want to. It also allows us to play Aether Vial. They have kept 7, so I'm pretty keen just to try to get rid of this Glistener Elf. The only issue is if they follow up with a Blooded Agent, then that's even worse. So perhaps it's worth just playing the Plains and passing. If they go all in on this Glistener Elf, then that's fine. We can try to get them before damage. If they have something like Spell Pierce, then we get pretty wrecked for this. If they go in for a few and then play Blighted Agent, it's not too bad, but this isn't looking like a lethal threat, which is great. No blocks. We'll take the 2 Infect. No second land. I think I definitely want to get rid of this Glistener Elf. I can wait for my turn and try to play around Daze. But I think it's worth just trying to stay on curve. If it gets Dave, that's not the greatest, but at the same time we do have some pretty good lines coming up. So we can allow B-Days, that's fine. We can untap. We can play a Ghost Quarter. We can then just try to play out this Stoneforge Mystic. We could also play Aether Vial, but I'm pretty keen to get this Jitte online straight away. This way as well, if we draw a land next turn, we can then hold up Jit and also play a Vial. It's a little bit late, but it could be enough. So we know they have a Trop in hand. There's the Trop. Yeah, that's fair enough. Become Immense does just get you regardless. Great card. That's for sure. So Invigorate and Berserk is just lethal even if we block. So there really is no point blocking. And what this allows us to do is get a little bit more information out of our opponent. But it looks like nothing. still a little scary going up to 4. Especially when they have 5 cards in hand. You kind of wonder what they have. Wow, not even playing a second creature. So, pretty happy there. But of course here we have this Jit, which isn't doing a whole lot. So... I think we really just have to try to swing another turn and just get in with Jit the following turn, if possible. They could also be crop rotating end of turn. Yeah, they could very much have counters as well. Something like Spell Pierce. There's an Inkmoth, so... Yeah, it could be rough. I mean, they're definitely swinging for 2, so we're definitely going to 6. And there's a lot of spells that pump them at least once. But I think, yeah, right now Jide is our only really option. If I'm blocking with Stoneforge here, that's really not going to achieve anything. That's really playing to lose and not really playing to win. So I'm pretty happy here just to try to get in this Jit end step. If I get an end step. Which, as you said, most likely will not be the case when they have 5 cards in hand. But at the same time, they might just want to be playing a little bit slow with white mana open and a land to play for days. TJ Fate. It is Dougal. And it's TJ Fate. The TJ Fate. So there's Vines. This is before blocks, I believe. Which is quite interesting. So I think what I do here is block. And then before damage, put in the Jit. So, not sure why they did that so early. Maybe a little bit of a screw up. Drawing another planes doesn't do much here. What we can do is at least try to play this Flicker Wisp. So if they have days, the Flicker Wisp is just game pretty much. If I play the Stoneforge, it plays around days, but we kind of have to block again. Perhaps Stoneforge is just the better play. I could also play Mirren, but then they could get in the air with Inkmoth and finish me off that way. Flickering Ghost Quarter gives me 2 options. Stoneforge, if they daze it, I have to tap the Ghost Quarter. And they still get in with Inkmoth. So I think my best option is just to play the Flicker Wisp and flicker the Ghost Quarter. They could also not see the line with the Vial, sorry, with the Stoneforge. But I want to get rid of both threats. And Stoneforge itself is not getting rid of this Glistener Elf, but Flicker Wisp could trade. So we'll go for the Flicker. If they have the days, I have the days. Yeah, that's fair enough. I wouldn't be too sure what I'd get with the days. So with the Recruiter, most likely something like Walking Blister, which would be pretty good. But I don't think it's going to be happening this game. Interesting to see what this is with 2 mana. Perhaps it's a Seal of Primordium. which is actually something else that I could name. But most likely here just getting a Pendelhaven. This also turns on Become Immense, I believe, with 5 cards in the graveyard because it's a 6 casting spell. They also have the Hierarchs. They have more than enough here. I did actually used to play Gutshot in the deck, which this play does not play around. And there's Berserk, which is lethal. Alright. So looking at board, there's nothing really I would change. I still really like everything in the deck. There's no real cards in the sideboard that I'm really happy for. I don't think it's worth attacking their graveyard because Become Immense is the only card that really is relevant there. The other Judgment on the play, maybe even 4 Thalias is a little bit too much. I could drop a Thalia and bring in a Council's Judgment as just one more piece of interaction. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. I think this is pretty good. In fact, can be a pretty rough matchup, but on the play, I'm a little bit more happy than, of course, on the draw where they could just go turn 1 threat, turn 2 win. Interesting to see how they board. I haven't seen any real hate yet. No Seal of Cleansing. Perhaps Spell Pierces. Can you zoom the cards in hard to see what cards are in the sideboard? Yeah, for sure. So right now on the board we've put 1 Thalia, 1 Stoneforge. We have the Mark of Asylum there for Grixis. Graveyard Hate in Surgical, Rest in Peace, and Ferromacard. We've taken out 2 Revokers because right now the only real card that we've seen so far that's nameable in the Infect matchup is Noble Hierarch. The Palace Jailer could be okay. It could actually be better than the Council's Judgment, but it can be a little bit tricky as well. So we will take the play. This hand's pretty good. It's got removal, which is great. It's got early threats in Mum, which is awesome. And the mirror to finish off the game, so I'm pretty happy with this keep. The slider makes them big next to the drop down boxes. How did I not know that? I just don't know that. I'm sorry. We'll do it next time, for sure. Yeah, 4 mana is a big ask, but we'll see how that goes. Noble Hierarch, not too bad. Thalia is pretty good. And I think I'm pretty happy to jam it. Because if they daze it, then we have we could also just play around daze for the whole game and play Mother of Runes here again. But perhaps it's better just to try and get Thalia down. I think it's better just to get Thalia down and play on curve. If they want to daze and be on the draw, that's fine. But here I am more than happy to actually attack in with the Mother Runes. They can't invigorate because the Thalia is on board and it's just 1 free damage. Next turn I don't really see them removing the Thalia anyway, so there's no real reason not to attack there. If you've seen maybe like a Dismember or something, you might be a little bit hesitant, but especially with the second Mum and them spending a turn on removing a creature of mine, I'm more than happy with them doing that. when they have Inkmoth Nexus as the main threat, there's a Blooded Agent. You do have to play around crop rotation a little bit. Interesting to see them fetch here and tap out for another Noble Hierarch. Okay, so looking pretty good here. We do get to path him in the end step, which is great. So what we can do is just get rid of this Blooded Agent right now. Play this mum. And again, probably get in for 3. Might just get in for 2. There's probably some weird math where they could actually just crack back with Become Immense and Berserk and Invigorates, but yeah, I'm just going to play it safe and leave the online mum online for now. This Rishon Port is a nice small answer to Inkmoth Nexus as well. Glycerol could be an issue. So I'm pretty happy to first if I tap out for the Mirren and they crop rotate for Inkmoth Nexus, that's going to be at least 1, 2, 3, 4 infect next turn. It's not something we can really play around, as I want to get this Mirren into play. So we'll cast the Mirren and see if it sticks. And then I'm pretty happy still to I could attack with the Thalia, but I also have to use a Mum because they can block with the Glistener Elf and then give it +1/+2 to make it a 2/3. So it isn't just a free swing through. So I'm pretty keen to keep them both back. And then perhaps even double block the Glistener Elf with both Thalia and Mirren Crusader. This is most likely crop rotation, which is fair enough. There's an agent, which is pretty hard as well. So they might even just have this race if we don't draw into anything good. Because here they get in for 4 infect. And then next turn they also have the Blighted Agent to get in for at least 4 infect. So it's not looking good. Even drawing something like... If I want to draw into Jitte and equip it next turn, then I feel... I feel like I have to return this Thalia just to get more... Wow, there's Invigorate. So is this just it? Oh, it's not enough. So we are still online. But I believe here I might have to return this Thalia to just turn on more things of mine. So it turns on Jitte. Judgment doesn't really matter. I think just because Jitte is such a good live draw that it's probably best to return this Thalia. And then if we draw it, we can at least cast it and swing. Because we do really only have one turn. We drew a Wasteland, which isn't the worst. But at the same time, it's not doing much. We are an 8. We don't have an answer to this Blighted Agent. So I believe that's just going to be game. Which is rough. So we can't block the Agent. It swings in for at least 3 with Exalted, because we can't even interact with these Noble Hierarchs. So yeah, just not good enough. Sadly, there's nothing I'm missing. Wasteland can take care of the Pendelhaven. Port can take care of the Inkmoth Nexus. We have 3 mana left over. I can play the Thalia again. The Relic Water does nothing. So yeah, that's going to be game. Unless we just play it. I mean, we can just try to Wasteland them here. And then we can just make them have it. So what we'll do is... we'll definitely swing them with Mirren. We have blockers for the Elf in Mother of Runes. And there's no point really porting down the Inkmoth until they put mana into it. But not looking good, sadly. So not the start we really wanted. And there it is. Alright, so 0-2 down to Reanimator and Infect, so not the greatest. Not the greatest start, but some of those games have been pretty close. But just not the greatest matchups when they kind of just going off a little bit too quickly, or you just don't have the removal there, which is tough. But I've definitely got a lot of experience playing against Infect with locals such as Ramo39 in the chat. Infect, one of his first legacy decks, a deck that he nearly foiled out, but of course gave up. Like the quitter that he is. You're not a quitter, Chris. It's fine. But yeah, hopefully turn this into a 3-2. That would be great. But yeah, they can be bad matchups, but I think at the same time, it can just be the way the deck plays as well. I mean, D&T is a deck where, other than the printings of Recruiter of the Guard, you really have to play with the 7 that you get. You do get a little bit of a manipulation with Stoneforge Mystic, but you can just get there against those decks. So perhaps even taking out the 4th Stoneforge wasn't correct, just because of how good Jitte was. But yeah, that's Magic. And I guess I can at least learn from my mistakes. And perhaps dropping that Mirren Crusader wasn't worth it when I could have kept up the Rishon Port for the Inkmoth. Which in hindsight wouldn't have really done much because the Blighted Agent was there as well, but it's tough. It's tough. And Legion, you are 100% correct. Infect does suck. It sucks. Yeah. If you're enjoying my content, I would love a follow. I've got some follower goals up, which is awesome. So recently my sponsor MTG Mate has been giving away some cards. At 150, I believe we have a FNM Mother of Runes to give out. At 175 followers, we have a GP Stoneforge Mystic. And then at 200 followers, we have a Judge Foil Bribery to give out, which is cool. So all of those can go international, which is great. I'll cover tracking. His hand's a little bit, but it's alright. There's a 2-1 Vial, and there's removal, and there's a mum, so we'll keep it. Against a fair deck, this hand is pretty great. A threat would be perfect. But against a lot of decks, against Storm, this does nothing. So this hand can be quite awful. We can really tell what we're playing against from here. No force, so that's a great sign. But it could also be a bad sign. It could be telling us that there's some pretty fast hate to come. Bloodstain Mire, interesting. Okay. Yeah, the MTG play mat looks really cool. I think Nick's done a pretty good job with that. Bloodstained Mire, what does that tell me? That doesn't tell me much. I think what it tells me is that I just want to play out this Jitte and pass turn. Next turn, if they tap out for something like him to Turak, at least I can get this Mum in and then actually attack with it as well. This could be Grixis, but that's a very small percentage of what this actually could be because it's just a Bloodstained Mire. That could be many things. Bloodstained Scalding Tarn gives me the impression that we're still on Grixis. Underground Sea perhaps could mean Grixis. Island. Ponder. Doesn't tell me a lot. This could be a slow playing Storm. This could be a Grixis deck trying to set up its hand to be a bit more D&T hateful. They chose not to shuffle, so if they do want to kill this Mum in our end step, they will need to shuffle those cards away. Something like a Fatal Push or a Lightning Bolt would pretty much give away straight away that it is Grixis, and I believe that it is because what they're doing here is very Grixis-like. And there it is, there's the Fatal Push. So here we get to untap. We get to tick up Vial to 2, which is great. Another Vial isn't so good. So we'll play the Plains and play the second Vial and pass. They aren't giving me anything. They really aren't. So perhaps this hand was just a little bit too fair. I mean, it's really turned into nothing. At least we get to see no Colligan's Command this turn, which is great. The Hymn's going to be great because it hits both cards. And now they really have perfect information. The only thing we could have done there is actually activate the Vial on 2 to see if they had something like a Stifle. But I don't believe they would have. So what do we get to do here? I think Recruiter of the Guard is a brilliant draw. So I think putting the Vial to 3 and this one just to 1 is fine. So this one, we will say always no after it goes to 3. And this one can just go to 1 straight away. Ugh. Port is not great, but at the same time, it does slow them down. So we do get to port them off their Underground Sea. If they know this hand is slow, they could just cast something like a Snapcaster into Ponder. But they're not wanting to. They do have 6 cards in hand, which is pretty insane. And not fair, to be fair. But yeah, Grixis can be a real brutal matchup. The Gideons in the sideboard are pretty good. The Mark of Asylum's interesting. I'm not too sure if it's good enough. Mark of Asylum, funnily enough, is also really good against Eldrazi because it stops both Endbringer and Walking Ballista. Here's K-Command. Oh, Gomag, okay. That's probably much even better. Especially with one sword in the bin, it's not looking too good. So here, we will use it. Yes, please. Revoker. Ugh. So I think what we got to do here is just pass turn. And then hopefully what happens is we get to tap them off a color like red. If they tap out for Jace, it's perfect because we have the Revoker for Jace and it also turns the Jitter online if we attack in. But with them thinking about this right now, it kind of makes me feel like they have a Cake Command in hand and they just want to use it now to get the most information out of me as well. Most likely by killing one of the Vials and destroying the Jitte is probably the best thing to do. It's tough as well because if they make me put in the Revoker by targeting me to discard, then I've got to name something like Jace or Liliana Last Hope. Most likely Jace, because if I can get through with this Jitte, yeah, it's tough. We'll see what they do. And there's the K command, so it's destroy and target. So we'll activate the Vial in response, and we'll name Jace the Mind Sculptor with the Revoker. But this is tough. So it still ends up being a 1-for-1, but they definitely have the race online, and they could just have something like a Fatal Push anyway. So that's gonna suck if they do. Always no. Palace Jailer? Recruiter of the Guard. Interesting. We could just go for it, and I think we will. The payoff's just so big. They could have the Force, but we'll see how it goes. It does put him down a card, which is great. There's the Force. It's a Strix that goes into play, so the Strix anyway would have been pretty hard to deal with, and it would give them back the crown. So what this recruiter does as well is turn on my Flicker Wisps a lot better, which is great. Liliana's pretty good. Caracas isn't doing much. I believe I should play it because then at least I can draw into Batterskull. I could also keep it to... we'll tap down their red source. Alright, so we've got one turn to draw. Sally's not the worst because at least we can bounce it, which is still pretty funny, but... So we can put it in with Vial, and then Caracas it back to our hand if we can block and then return, but it's not a winning play, but at least it's something. Alan, luckily we're 0-2, and it's not looking good. I'm going to assume they have a removal spell here, which they do. So that was pretty rough. It was a pretty fair hand to keep. but I'm liking a bit more grind in this matchup. So bringing in a lot of stuff. The swords aren't the greatest. Thalia's not the greatest. Can take out a Revoker. The Blister's okay. Perhaps just one Prelate is good enough. Yeah, that's definitely fair enough. It's a shame that when we cast the Palace Jailer, we did turn off our ability to use our port to keep them off, even just a mana. So that is very true. We could have definitely kept them off double black. I really just didn't think that they would have had Lily in the main deck, but that's just that is just me. Stoneforge isn't the best in this matchup either, so I'm pretty happy with this. Might keep in one swords just to have a swords in the main. And then a lot of their neg 1 stuff is pretty tough, so we do have the Mark, which takes up a mum slot pretty much. We do have a lot of 4-drops, so we're going to get to mana pretty fast. The Thalias are good. Revokers are pretty good. I'm pretty keen on maybe dropping... Maybe the Batterskull just isn't worth it in this matchup. Maybe this is good enough. Maybe the Thalia can come in. So yeah, I think in this game I'll definitely be taking them off double black, if so. This hand's pretty rough. It's a 1-lander, and we do have a lot of big drops in this deck, so I'm pretty keen to mull, especially a deck with K Command. Pretty happy to keep this. That can go to the bottom. I'm really just looking to draw lands here. Yeah, that's very true. I think really I was kind of worried of Kolaghan's Command in the early stages when they didn't have the mana online to use the red source effectively, but yeah, that's very true. Happy to play the Plains and pass. If they him us, I really want double white on the board. Prelate on 1 is pretty good. It's just a shame that there's so many things that get rid of Prelate. Port's pretty good here. I'm pretty keen to get this Recruiter online. At least if they untap and go and play a Liliana Last Hope, we do have an answer for it in the Council's Judgment. Ponder perhaps showing that their hand wasn't that strong, and they kind of relied on that push to get rid of something like an early turn Mum or Thalia or Stoneforge, and then sculpt their hand a little bit better later in the game. Thoughtseize is pretty good. Most likely taking the Mirren, if they don't have a bolt, the Council's Judgment if they want to land something like a Planeswalker. It's actually Flickerwisp, which is interesting. Jit's not too bad, but it really sucks with Colligan's command. So I'm pretty happy here to just attack in and try and play another threat in Mirren Crusader. Mirren pretty hard to beat, other than something like Diabolic Edict, Lightning Bolt. They don't have many outs. Toxic Deluge could be a card they brought in, which also does hit the Crusader. Double Strike does trigger twice, which is really nice. And most likely something that I'd use straight away with the Crusader just to get in damage and use the Jit while I can. So of course, with Mirren, you can swing in for 2, get counters, and then use those counters before you deal second strike damage or normal combat. And having all 4 really isn't too much different to having just 2 in this matchup. I'm not really wanting to kill a Gomag Angler, and they're really just to hit pesky Baleful Strixes. Brainstorm most likely trying to find something to deal with this Mirren Crusader. Or maybe even just a 4th land. There's a Strix, so not the greatest. There's a Bolt, wow, so they had it. So what do I want to do here? I think now I'm pretty happy just to maybe try to sit on this Vial. We can take them off Volcanic. We can tap them off Black, which is great. I don't really want to trade here because the Recruiter is just so much more valuable to me with cards like Flickerwisp in my deck. Keeping them off Black as well keeps them off Liliana Last Hope and Himdatarak, which is pretty huge. Yeah, there was definitely at no point a thought of me allowing them to keep the Volcanic. So we are on the same page there, which is great. Just to pass back, which is pretty awesome. Another Plains isn't the best, but it does allow us to start drawing into things like Gideon, which would be great. I do feel like this port's doing a lot of damage, doing a lot of work. So I could play this Jit. Which I think it's worth doing, just making the most of my mana. It does put it out there, and it does turn on Colligan's command to be a little bit better. But at the same time, if I'm not using the mana, I don't just want to keep cards in my hand for the sake of having them in my hand. Pretty lucky that they didn't have something actually. Having the Bolt for the Crusader was pretty huge. There wasn't too much else they could have done there. Interesting that they're not getting in again. There's a Wisp, which is interesting because it does allow me to flicker the Recruiter if possible. but it also turns off the Rishon port. So perhaps I'm actually... I think I'm happy here just to pass back again and try to get this vial to 3. I could equip the recruiter, but I feel like that would give them a little bit more reason to kill the recruiter before I get vial on 3. So here's a fetch. So this could just be Jace. Or Colligan's Command. Liliana's pretty good. We do have the Council's Judgment, which is really nice, but this does suck a little bit. I'm gonna activate it just to see if they do anything. They don't, so we'll untap. We will put Vial to 3. We'll draw planes to play around Spell Pierce. And we'll try to Judgment away this Liliana. So that's a small win, which is nice. Now we get to go to upkeep and tap them off red again. I'm more afraid of Colligan's Command at this point. Not too scared of Jace if they play Jace, which is nice. They might just brainstorm. They will most likely tick it up to 5. Wow, they just brainstorm. Interesting. So my play here is most likely going to be end step Wisp, flick out the Strix, untap, equip the Jit, and swing at Jace. They do get to draw another card off the Strix, but at least... if they have the push, they have the push. But there's not too much else that I can really do here. So we'll play the Flicker Wisp. We'll target the Strix because we want it out of the way. If they have the push, they can push now. Which is a little annoying, but... yep, they got it. We do not want to use the ability. And just a plane, so... not looking great. We really needed them not to have the push, not to have the bolt, but... this is Grixis for you. So out-wise, something like Gideon or Palace Jailer is really only the fresh out that we have. We do also have another Council Judgment, which can happen. Needle just resolves. That's more than fine. I might as well take them off something. Especially while they can't use it in their attack phase.
You are listening to Beat Grounds.
And it's just on the plains. It's gonna be game. Sadly, so some pretty rough matchups so far in Reanimator, Infect, and Grixis, but we will hold true and we'll play out this league, and we'll see how we go. But Grixis, just so many cards, so many good cards against us in Fatal Push and Colligan's Command, most likely Snapcasters, Liliana Last Hope. It's rough, it really is. But yeah, got to play those matches. It's part of the league. And perhaps it was even decision making that I did poorly. So getting that Jailer off the Recruiter and going for it, it may be a little bit too risky. It could be greedy, but I think that's just part of the matchup when it's pretty badly favored that you just have to go for it sometimes. And if I don't, that Gomag's just going out of control. So yeah, the card advantage is very hard to deal with. Definitely a lot of 2-for-1s. Just not fun. Again, not the greatest hand. A little bit better with the mana denial and a white source that actually sticks around. This Thalia is pretty good, so we'll put that on top. It does give us a turn 2 play against decks that aren't fair, and it also allows us to play around cards like Thoughtseize turn 1. Cloud Post, interesting. Okay. So what do we want to do? We could Wasteland them early. That doesn't do a lot. I'm pretty happy to perhaps get this Thalia down first. And then next time we have both Port and Wasteland. So the good thing about this is that if they play Sorcerer's Spyglass, they can't actually cast it this turn, I believe. But they have an endless one. Okay. Which is fine. Another Port is pretty good as well. So we'll go to combat first. Thought Knot can be an issue, so I'm pretty keen to play a Stoneforge. Get a Batterskull, and then still stay on the Wasteland strategy and take them off a Cloud Post. Temple is only 3 mana, which is great for us. And it looks like it's just going to be a pass back, which is even better. So here we get to... I'm happy to play the Canopy. We can attack in with the Thalia. And then here we're going to slide away from the ports, but we get to play Batterskull and then next turn double port, which is awesome. There's an eye, so that's pretty rough, but there's a Thought Knot. So in response, we will, of course, play this Batterskull. then they get Stoneforge, which is a little rough, but at the same time, the other two equipment just aren't as good as this Batterskull. So getting the Batterskull down first is really good. Oh, and this sword is even better. But I believe it's going to be better just to keep them off mana. So here we get to at least swing in for 4. And yeah, obviously seeing the ports they just gave up pretty early. This can be a pretty rough matchup, but I feel like the Ballista's a little bit too slow. The Thalias probably aren't the best. I might take out all 3 and keep in 1. First Strike's still pretty relevant. The parts aren't too bad. They usually don't play any wastes. The Council's Judgment's pretty good, and the Relic Ward is usually pretty good. Prelate, if we see all his dust, can name 7. But I think we'll try to not get them there with our Ghost Quarters, Rishon Port, and Wasteland. Mark of Asylum is actually pretty good against Endbringer and Walking Blister, so I'm going to try that out. The Mother Runes actually are pretty terrible. So perhaps the Jailer and a Gideon and... yeah, maybe just Gideons. And see how this goes. There's not too much else I want to bring in, so... yeah, pretty happy with that. Of course, want to not have the Gideons in our opening hand. They are cards we want to draw into. So, there's one. Which isn't the best, but we have 3 lands. I'm pretty happy with this. So we're going to keep this. I think I'm going to lead with Ghost Quarter and then see at the end of their draw step if they do have a basic land or not. Sorcerer's Spyglass is pretty good, and they do have a few names. So I'm assuming this will go after Port because we do have the full 4. They don't know how many Ghost Quarters we have. The Gideon is a little bit too slow. They did go down to 6. So we will see what happens here. They did also put the card to the bottom of their library, and they named Ghost Quarter. So obviously not wanting to get Ghost Quarter out of this game at the start, which is more than fine. So we'll play this Plains and then just pass over. I will also be back in 1 second. Alright, well then play. Hopefully not a Thought Knot. They do have a fair few options for a Thought Knot, but I don't think that's a luxury that they can have. Oh, maybe. Wow, they have it. Most likely taking the Stoneforge, yeah. And a Mimic, wow. So our turn 2 play is just going to be a port and pass. Oh, nearly missed it. So we'll tap down the Ancient Tomb. We do luckily have Jailer into Flickerwisp, which is pretty good. Jit not doing much, so we'll play the Ghost Quarter and pass. Upkeep hitting this Ancient Tomb. No blockers. So here we... Gotta play this Jailer. Taking out the Thought Knot, but they still do have a pretty good clock. Drew another Vial, pretty dead, but... this means they do get back the Thought Knot as well. Oblivion Soul is pretty good. Yeah, this might have just been a little bit too good. We'll create a human and go from there. But it's really not looking good here. Alright. I wouldn't really change anything about this deck. So we'll keep going with it. Nope. Still not great, but we'll give it a shot. It at least has a turn 2 play and a few answers for Thought Knot to hit. We'll put the other swords to the bottom. We'll play a land. Something like a Chalice would really hit this hand pretty hard. I'm assuming they actually took out Chalice. Maybe brought it in. No, they would have brought it in on the draw. There's a Mimic, which is fine. We'll swords it now. Now we do actually get the option of playing the Vial and holding up Sword, or just playing a Stoneforge, which I think the better play is just playing Stoneforge and trying to get Batterskull online ASAP. So we'll go from here and see how we go. There's a temple. Ooh, but nothing. Okay, I'll take that. Here, I'm actually pretty happy just to keep up the sword. Not playing the Aether Vial means that I can also pitch the Vial to a Reality Smasher, which is quite nice. Endring is pretty good too, but it doesn't beat swords. So what I might just do here is put this Batterskull in now. play it, maybe untap and get some a land. Oh, not a land. That's fine. At least we get in for 5, which is really nice. I'm happy to play the Vial here and then just keep up Port. We are working on a clock, so I might actually take him off the Temple. But I feel like I should just take him off the 2 mana. That is always 2 mana. Glimmer Post gives them a bit of time. Smash is pretty good, but luckily for us, it's not gonna get there for them. So we will take up Vial. Recruiter's not too bad. We're gonna play it, and we're gonna get a Palace Jailer. And just really hope that we can get there on this 4th land. They do have 5 cards in hand, which is pretty absurd. Wow. That's pretty good. So now we really need to draw this land. We will take this up. Ah! That's rough. That's really rough. I don't really even want to play it because it doesn't get us anywhere. I'd feel like... Is the Thalia better than tapping them off 2 mana? I don't... If we play the Thalia... I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say the Port's better. Here we will take them off the Glimmer Post. Because it still taps for 2. Sorry, I should have hit the Cloud Post. That's my bad. This Revoker is going to come down and name Walking Ballista. Yeah, it is just blockers at the moment. That is fine. So here we will tap this. We'll put in Revoker naming Walking Ballista. Tick this up. We'll find that 4th land, which is pretty good. We'll exile this Reality Smasher. Hopefully even draw a 3-drop, which would be awesome. I don't want to attack. Another Revoker, not the greatest. Another Smasher would be pretty annoying here because then they would be able to get through. That's fine. I'm going to say most likely naming Batterskull. Name's Gideon, which is fair enough. No attacks even. That's interesting. We don't want to use this ever again. So we will not use it. We'll draw into a Port, which isn't the worst. We could still play the Gideon so that if we draw into something like Flickerwisp, or just keep them off mana. I feel like we have to at least attack once. And then we might just pass. I might play this Thalia just to have a second blocker. I could definitely equip the Batterskull, but I want to port here as well. I want to draw into a 3-drop. But it's just not happening. Yeah, that's very true. It does turn off Smasher as a live draw, but sadly, if they draw a Smasher and swing with both, then I'm not going to be able to block both, and they're still going to get the Monarch. Which does give them back a Smasher, but I would have a 6/6. Yeah, so if I do equip the Palace Jail, it becomes a 6/6. If they draw into a Smasher, they swing them with both. The Smasher gets taken out. They get the Monarch back. They get a Smasher back. I can then swing back for 6, get the Monarch. Yeah, it's definitely definitely a different approach, which could have worked. It's nice to get the win. It's been a pretty terrible night, so it's great to get the win. But yeah, I thought maybe now is probably a good time to give a little shout out to my sponsor, MTG Mate. Which of course is a new Australian website. Has a load of singles, which is awesome. They've got some new bling coming out, which is awesome. A few playmats, if you haven't seen them. They will be at GP Melbourne with a booth if you're going along GP Melbourne for some sealed. But yeah, really cool of them to put up with me, and to of course support the channel by giving away cards to viewers, which is awesome. So if you weren't here earlier, we do have some giveaways coming up. So hopefully when we hit 150 followers, we got a F&M foil Mother of Runes. 175 is a GP foil Stoneforge Mystic, and the 200 mark is a foil, a Judge foil Bribery, which is very cool. So yeah, very, very, very happy to have MTG Mate on board. All right, last match. See how this goes. Not a great night. First 3 games were pretty horrible, but got back a little bit, which is nice. Just some tough magic. Another one lander that isn't even colored. I just can't take it. I don't think it's good enough, but we'll keep it. We'll lead on the Caracas, and if it gets Wastelanded and we're against Wasteland deck, it's quite nice, but that's fine. We'll put that on top. That's a pretty good 2-drop. The mirror. Interesting that they let on port, so I'm pretty keen just to wasteland this and see what happens. I don't want to be in a situation where they just play a land and pass. Swords isn't the worst draw because it allows us to actually do something if they do have a turn 2 play. If they don't, they just port us off white. Oh, it is going to be goblins. Interesting. Oh, maybe not. This could just be a red version of D&T with things like... yeah, some good cards. So do I want to use the swords here? I think I want to use the swords here because it turns off me going untap, play Stoneforge, get Jit, and then them just tapping us down for the rest of the game. It also turns off something like them untapping and flick wisping the Stoneforge. So I'm pretty keen just to get it out of play. Now we get to play our own Stoneforge, which is great. Get Jit and pass turn. We also could have kept them off their colored mana if they didn't have a third land. They do have 7 cards in hand, so interesting to see that they could just be going with a tap out. No, okay, playing Thalia. Interesting. So what I'm happy to do here is play this port and pass, and then next turn we can return the Thalia and hopefully get in with the Stoneforge with Jitte. So, luckily for us, Thalia not a great card in the matchup. There's a Wasteland, so it does move the ball in our court to play this Jitte out. And at least now, if their plan is to Thalia and port, we can still use this Karakas to return it to their hand. We can also use the Karakas to play the Mother of Runes. So there are a few options. Interesting to see them attack. That is fine. Prelate's not a great draw. They've already used 2 Wastelands, so I'm pretty keen here to play this Mum. Get in with Stoneforge. Yeah, I reckon I will play another league. I went pretty poor in this one, so there's no point leaving the night as at best a 2-3. Flooded Strand, interesting. So also, I'm assuming the Flooded Strand because it makes it look like a blue deck. But one thing that Flooded Strand does do is turn on Stifle a lot more, which is pretty bad. So upkeep that most likely target is Plains because I'm going to use the Karakas anyway. So that is fine. So if I draw a land, which I do, I still get to equip this Jitte, which is great because now I can go pro-white. They can't swords because of the Thalia. So now I can go to combat, attack him with the Stoneforge. They most likely don't have an answer for this Mum, which is great. And so what I want to do now is actually go to their turn. If I kill the Thalia now, they could just swords if they did have one. So it's actually probably better to go to their turn, let them untap, and not even worry about this Thalia. If they play a Karakas to save their own Thalia, that's fine. If they play a Wasteland to get rid of the Karakas, that's fine. This Jit's most likely going to run away with the game, so we'll see how that goes. Trying to get in 2 damage first, which is fine. I'd much rather... Recruiter is okay. Most likely getting Flicker Wisp. Phyrexian Revoker, okay. Also a more than fine play. Another Mum is pretty good. So here, pretty keen to cast Mum. We can attack in with Stoneforge. We can keep up Karakas for this Thalia. Everything's looking pretty good right now. For them to get the Revoker, they would need another land at least. so they can play Revoker and also port us down, which would keep us off Flicker Wisping the Revoker, which doesn't do much, but so with them destroying the Caracas, we might as well use it on this Thalia. So we'll get rid of the Recruiter here. And then this Revoker will come down. Naming Jet, which is fine. But they're they could start running away with this game. Oh, that's a huge draw. Swords is exactly what we wanted. So here we're going to attack. And I'm actually pretty keen to pump this guy up a little bit, just to get the clock moving. We will still have 3 counters on this, which is perfect because it kills pretty much everything that can be in their hands. So yeah, very happy with how that turned out. There's a Wisp, so we'll wait to see what it actually names. Most likely the Jitte. So what we can do here is kill the Flicker Wisp. We can gain 2 life, and we can gain 2 life. And then here we just hope to draw a land. Land would be the best because then we get to re-equip the Jit. Ah, ha, ha. Great draw. Great draw. So runner really with the Swords of Plowshares and then the second land. So this is just worked out pretty beautifully. And yeah, hoping now just to run away with this game. Another Flicker Wisp would not do it. They do get a Recruiter, which could go get another Phyrexian Revoker, but they are running out of time. So what do I want to do? I feel like I want to kill the Recruiter. Pump the Stoneforge. Swing in for 3. Let them untap and tap down their plateau. Can't do much about this other than draw a white card. Bo Bubbles, very cool to see you. So what I want to do here is draw a white source for this Flicker Wisp to flicker out the Revoker, and we don't get it, which is fine. A little bit hard, but what we can do is at least still attack in with the Stoneforge. I'm pretty happy here just to pass back and keep their mana at bay. I'm going to tap down their port so they can't port us in our turn. Should be we serving with a mum too? Attacking with a mum? Definitely could. If they have double swords, it is a little bit rough. But you never know. This could... No. I was going to say this could be Magus of the Moon, but... There's a Vial. A little late to the party, but nevertheless, once it gets online, it gets pretty good. Tapping out for Thalia, I believe, here. Which is more than fine. Again, a white source would do it, because then we can just take out this Phyrexian Revoker. Another Port, which isn't the greatest. So at least here we get to play another Mum. Or play the Mum and Revoker. I like playing the Mum. Swinging in with this. If they block with first strike, that's fine, because we have both mums to give protection and kill the Jit, kill the Thalia. So no blocks, we get more counters. And then here, we're just going to keep them off port, so they can't port us off our white source. Yeah, that's fair enough. I'm pretty happy just keeping these mums online. They're going to come in handy down the line. And I wasn't in much of a rush to close out this game. There's the Wisp, which is pretty good, especially trying to hit this Jitte. So there's the Jit. And still no land. So unfortunately, I think we're getting to a position where we have to name Jitte with our own Revoker. So next turn they can play the Jit, but they can't equip it. So we do still have one more turn to figure out what we want to do. So we'll actually attack in with two creatures and see how they block. And now we'll just port again. That's really all we can do. We can name Vial with Jit, but I feel like if they do play their own Jitte, then we do need to use our own Revoker to get that down. So there's Jit. Hopefully no Ancient Tomb. Ancient Tomb would be pretty good. 3 in the air is a freebie. You may have that. And now sadly 4 Flick Whips in a row. Yeah, we can't help that. So we'll play the Revoker. We gotta name Jit. Oh, we can actually name... Yeah, we still have to name Jitte. A heads up play for them, they've only been through 2 Flick Wisps, is they can actually, in their turn, Vial up to 3, activate Vial, play Flick Wisp, get rid of the Phyrexian Revoker, equip the Jitte, swing with the Jitte in the air. So we might see what they play first. Yeah, we can definitely name Vial, which is good, but what I'm really scared of right now is Jit. and there are ways for them to play around Jitte with their own Revoker, but not so much with us. And seeing they're getting Batterskull, there's no real reason to name something like sort of Fire and Ice, so I'm pretty happy here just naming Jit. Yeah, definitely. So Vile can give them all the creatures in the world, but it's not something that I'm really scared of. Jit, on the other hand, is something I am very scared of. And they kept the Vile at 2, which is really interesting, not going up to 3, so tells us a little bit more about their hand. We might as well play this Aether Vial and see how far it gets us, but it's... of course this costs 2 because of Thalia, which is fine, but we really got to start getting these Flicker Wisps in play, so we'll see how this ends up. Batterskull equipped with the Flicker Wisp is also a thing, which could just lead to game. It does give us the out of being able to draw a white, but it's not looking too good. We do have a few small outs, which is nice. There's the plains. So that's step 1. So I feel like what we do here is play the Flicker Wisp. This is now an infinite blocker for the Flicker Wisp, which is great. We'll hit our own Stoneforge and just go searching for another piece of equipment. So we'll get sword and then we'll pass. So this is tough, but I think getting this double white has stabilized us pretty well. Especially with 3 Mother of Runes and Jit locked up. It does give us a lot more fight. Yeah, pretty good game. I think like the early game exchange of just mana denial in Wastelands and Ports helped a lot. And then there's that little race to Jit, which is pretty funny. But Stoneforge by itself just wasn't enough in an answer. And as Double Gay Dave Bowie said, maybe attacking him with a Mother or 2 early on was a better move. But I just feel that putting Mum on the line like that can backfire pretty fast. Especially now where having 3 Mums is just so good that if they draw into something like Revoker, that can really hurt because Revoker naming Mum can be pretty huge. So I kind of have to react to, say, Aether Vial being activated by 1 Mum targeting the Flicker Wisp and naming white, just so they can't go activate Vial, okay, Jit's in play, Mums are offline, swing in the air with Flicker Wisp, and lose my own. So yeah, it is, but at the same time, I'm not really fussed. I'm still pretty happy with the board state. I think we have the higher ground per se, even though their Batterskull is a 7-5 compared to our 3-1. The 3 3 mums really help. But still on their turn, which is interesting. Obviously, maybe drawing into a card that they don't really know much about. They're attacking with a Wisp, which is fine. We'll go to blocks. We'll block it. We'll go to give this Flicker Wisp pro white till end of turn. Oh, their own mum, which is really good. Oh, okay. So here... This is tough. So I think what I have to do here is at least... I think I have to attack in with the Sword of Fire and Ice. And hit the mum. So I have to do that in the air. So I'm going to activate Stoneforge now and put in this sword. Vial will go up. Thalia is not a great draw. I believe this might just be game. So if I equip the sword and swing in, I have to give pro white so they can't block. I can deal 2 to the mother, but then they just swing back with the other Flicker Wisp. So I think I really needed to draw into a 3rd white source so I could Flicker Wisp this turn as well. So I could play the Flicker Wisp, flicker out my other Flicker Wisp, end step get this back, exile that Flicker Wisp. And then at least I would have a bit of ground. But I can at least see what I draw. So we will equip the sword to Flicker Wisp. Sadly, they're sideboard cards, and this is game 1. But they are good outs. So we'll go pro white. We'll go to attacks. The damage will hit the mum. We'll draw a Wasteland, which doesn't really do a lot. We'll play that. And then we'll just pass back. Yeah, this is game 1. Interesting to show me Dire Fleet when they have the win. Yeah, but they just have the win in the air now because they can swing in for 7 in the air. And there it is. So let us begin the sideboard game. So Palace Jail is pretty good. Gideons are pretty good. The Containment Priests, sorry, the Council's Judgments are really good. I find the Paths are actually really good too. The Thalias are not so great. The Sanctum Prelate is not so great. I usually drop a land, being Caracas. Perhaps 2 Gideons is a little bit too much. I could drop down to 1 and be happy with that. Everything else is pretty good. Maybe 1 Mirren. There we go. I'm happy with that. We will play. We will keep this hand. This is an awesome hand. Yeah, game 1 was cool. So now I've really got to try and get through both games in 12 minutes, which is pretty tough as well. So that's a little risk to itself. Planes into Mum would be kind of cool because we have the swords. Interesting. Yes. We will play out this second. We'll play out the Stoneforge Mystic and we'll go and get Jitte. If they tap me down, I'm pretty happy just playing out this Jit. Use the ability, play the Batterskull. Sorry, play the Plains and pass turn. If they untap and do nothing, wow, okay. Mum is fine. What I might actually do here is maybe a little bit counterintuitive, but I'm gonna put in this Revoker and name Aether Vial. And then Swords this Mum. I believe they didn't port us because they have a swords. So I'm actually just going to attack in with the Revoker and keep up Batterskull. What I can do here is actually activate the Vial. Recruiter for Mum. And still use my mana effectively. And also with Mother Runes online, that's pretty good. Also just holding up Batterskull seems really nice. This could be Revoker naming Stoneforge. This could be Revoker naming Jit. I'm pretty happy for them just to Revoker in whatever they have, if they have Revoker. They have a Die Fleet, which does nothing, I believe. They can, of course, use it. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. You got me. So what I would love here is next turn another land to play Revoker. Wow, first strike as well is going to be brutal. I think I have to drop in this Batterskull and block. And hope they don't have Flicker Wisp. But first strike with Jit is pretty rough. They can just kill the germ still, which is really annoying. They can block, deal 2 damage, and then neg 1, neg 1, neg 1, neg 1 before actual damage. Which is fine. It means that all the JIT counters are gone, which is nice. Yeah. And there it goes. Another vial isn't great. We can try and get this Batterskull through. Sorry, this JIT. I'm assuming they do have that Flicker Wisp. And it's looking so... Or some sort of first strike creature, yeah. Flicker out the Drit, and then probably trade, and that's just going to be game. So let's join another league. That was pretty bad. That was pretty bad. Pretty tough. I really did like how they kept the Flicker Wisp in hand not to take out the germ because they had already dealt with it with the Flicker Wisp. With the JIT, sorry. In the blind, not the best. No white source, which is really harsh. We do have a turn 1 Vial, but that's about it. 2 double white creatures as well, just doesn't really seem where we want to be. So this is going to be a mull. This is better. Especially against any combo decks. I do like the Wasteland. I think Plains Pass is fine. Plains, of course, gives away what we're on, other than, say, Miracles with a pretty bad keep. Chronic Man, thank you very much. All the best. Have a great week. And thanks for checking out the stream. So let's just go Plain Pass. Ooh, okay. Some sort of loam strategy, I'm going to assume. Seeing the Grove already kind of tells me some vibes around... Wow, Molten Vortex. It's pretty good. What do I want to do here? I feel like I want to get this Stoneforge online if I can. I also just want to have the chance to get Batterskull. I could try to waste them off red, but I don't think that's going to work. Especially if they go, say, untap, land, loam. That's just going to destroy me. However, it might be my only out, sadly. Drawing into Phyrexian Revoker would be really good to turn off this Molten Vortex. If this is lands, they don't have that many answers, which is nice, to Phyrexian Revoker. So here I am happy to search up with a Stoneforge, get another piece of equipment, and then in my upkeep with the trigger and the stack, I can just put in the Batterskull and not pay for the Stoneforge, which is fine. So really just want to dodge a red source here, whether it be a land or a Mox Diamond. Could also be a crop rotation if they really want to kill it. There's a Verdant, so that's sadly not going to happen. This is pretty unwinnable. So we'll bring in the Rest in Pieces. We'll bring in the Surgicals and the Fairy Macabre. I'll bring in the parts and take out one sword. I really like Sanctum Prelate on 2. The Jailer is a little bit slow, but as well is pretty good. The Blister's not good enough. The Jitte isn't good enough. 2 Stoneforge Mystics can go out. Recruiter is pretty good. Mum's a little bit worse, but not too bad. I like taking out the Canopy. Also, Thalia slows me down a fair bit, so I might just keep one in. They also play Caracas, so I'm pretty happy with this. I might take out a Jailer for a Council's Judgment. I might bring in a Relic Water for a Revoker. There's really only 2 names for Revoker anyway, in Molten Vortex and Mox Diamond. So we're happy with that. And not the greatest hand. We'll keep this. Wasteland can go to the bottom. Play a Plains, and we'll play a Vial and pass. Vial, one of the better cards in the matchup. Especially turning on things like Phyrexian, Flickwisp. But as well, Corrosion Grip can be an issue, so there are answers. Exploration's pretty good. They could actually have a turn 3 kill if they're 2 lands, they play a Thespian Sage and Dark Depths, and then they untap, and if I port them down off the Grove, they could crop rotate for Ancient Tomb and actually activate the ability to copy Dark Depths, which is pretty brutal. But I'm going to say they don't have that. Hopefully. Mum would be online, but they wouldn't have... I wouldn't have a flyer to block with, so that is not a great option. Wasteland's pretty good. Mox Diamond's pretty good. There's Dark Depths. So they're nearly there. So they might even just Wasteland this Rishadan Port. I'm just going to pass. I could try and Surgical that Dark Depths. Upkeep. I might give him one more turn. I might try and hit a Loam. Hitting Loam would be pretty awesome. Corrosion Grip's fine. Relic Water's okay, but not the best. Here, I'm happy to keep them off their red source. Punishing Fire would be pretty brutal. Land's pretty tough with a few Crows and Grips on the sideboard. They might think that I'm bringing in Pithing Needle, Winter Orb. It does hit a few good cards. I would like to prevent that. Another Mum isn't great, but it's something we get to do at least. Now they do get to gamble if they do have one. Most likely gambling for Loam. But at the same time, got to be pretty happy that they hopefully don't have another land. Hopefully I don't have the Thicket. So they can cycle it and then Loam or dredge it instant speed. But it's not looking too good anyway. This is looking pretty rough. What this does turn on, at least, is they might also be like Bajuka bogging themselves. I'm assuming they would have taken out Bog. Maybe they leave it in just to play around Surgical. Nope, just going for stage. Interesting. So we get to keep one Mum. This isn't looking great. Yep. That is how this game went. And sadly, that is me because I am pretty gassed. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed at least some of the good Magic that you guys saw. If you like what you see, please follow. Of course, I'm around every Thursday night from 7:30 p.m. AEST. That's Australian Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, not the greatest showing, but yeah, hope you guys had a great time, and I'll see you around.